Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 187. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the evening of Thursday, September the 24th, from poolside at the James Strong compound, because we do things safely because we have a pandemic going on. My guest today, he's back again, third time in about 4 months. The one, the only, James Greyfalcon. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How have you been?
Very good, very good.
You look great.
Yeah.
You look great.
Staying in shape.
Had a good summer?
Yes, staying in shape and beginning of fall. I'm always one of the people who's adamant that summer does not end until September 21st.
Yeah.
Because St. Louis summers, like this September wasn't that hot, but usually St. Louis Septembers are like 92. Yeah. 90. So, and it was still 80s.
Well,
so.
the trophy wife and I had that conversation. We've got the pool here, and that's been just a lifesaver with this pandemic because
right.
You can't go out and do a lot of the stuff you can. So we
right.
spend a lot of time here.
Yeah.
And on Labor Day, we're sitting in the pool. It's nice and warm. It's in the evening. The sun's going down about right now. Mm-hmm. And I started to get sad. I said, summer's over. After tonight, summer's over. She says, no, summer's September 21st. In fact, this year it's September 22nd. And she says, summer's not, summer's over. I'm getting all blue and down in the dumps. And she basically just told me to stop it because we got a lot of good warm weather left.
Oh, absolutely. At least a month, maybe 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know who actually didn't mind the pandemic at all?
Who's that?
Vampires.
Now, why did they not like it?
Or
mind it, I should say.
Because there were less people around, which meant that they could do their vampire stuff with less chance of getting exposed as being vampires.
More incognito.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, people are more isolated than if someone goes, hey, there's a vampire. It's like, what? Where?
Now you know all this stuff about vampires. Maybe I shouldn't even ask the question. How do you know stuff about vampires? And actually, the past few podcasts you've done here, you've only come at nighttime.
Yes.
And
I've been accused of being a vampire by a lot of people. I stay up late sometimes and, sleep during the day sometimes and,
See, I'm just the opposite. And I see your Facebook posts, and I'll get up at 4:30, go onto Facebook. Damn, the Greyfalcon put something on here 2.5 hours ago. When does the man sleep?
I have some alternative sleep schedules, but it works out.
Yeah. Well, hey, the reason I wanted to have you on, the topic of today's podcast, and we always go down rabbit holes, of course, and we will this time too, I'm sure. But the pandemic, just what's going on in the world socially, economically, everything seems to be changing, which nobody is real comfortable with change most of the time. I know I'm not, but it just seems like you can't have any fun anymore. And I told the story off the air, but I'll tell the story on the air. A buddy of mine sent me an email, okay? And it's my buddy Dave in California. And it was a joke. And he says, the joke goes something, I'm paraphrasing, but the joke basically says that he has a friend of his in France, and they were talking about the Tour de France, and his friend asked him, do you know the history behind the Tour de France? He said, well, I don't know much about it. He said, well, do you know who the first champion was of the Tour de France, the first winner? And he says, the 5th Panzer Division?
That's funny.
Yeah. And on this joke had a picture of a German tank. And he said, now my friend has banned me and for some reason doesn't want to talk to me anymore. And I laughed at the joke. And I thought to myself, wow, I shouldn't be laughing at that because there's nothing funny about, World War II and people getting killed and the Nazis and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, no, that was funny.
That was funny.
It was funny. And it seems like anymore people get canceled because they've said something that's offended somebody. And I'm sorry, but the funniest jokes offend somebody. Now, there's a difference between being funny and poking fun and being hateful. Totally different.
Right.
Okay? But the best jokes poke fun at people, at situations people get into, etc. And if you don't do that, you're taking all the fun out of things.
You're not going to be a good comedian.
No, you're not going to be a good comedian.
And that's one of the reasons. And be honest, getting on the issue of wokeness. Why? And we were talking about this with white guys in Congress. Like, there aren't that many white men on either party that have any kind of stature anymore.
No.
Either side. The Republicans are still relying on their white maleness, but their lead guys are guys like Tom Cotton, Josh Hawley, and they're not Ronald Reagan,
No.
They're not, and Donald Trump is their one alpha. The Democrats, there are no white guys who are in a kind of prominent projection position. Come on, Nader? Who? Schumer? No. So
Joe Biden. The man
he's the anti-alpha. He's the opposite of an alpha. Kamala Harris is a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
He's the second. He's actually said that.
Did you hear the faux pas the other day by Senator Harris? She was talking about the Harris. She actually mentioned the Harris-Biden administration. And some people say, well, she just misspoke.
No.
I don't know that she did. I think
not her style.
Exactly.
She's
not very calculating.
She's not a gaffer.
No.
When she says something messed up, it's because that's what she believes.
If Biden says something, okay, he's famous for gaffes. Right. Always has been. Harris, no.
She's not a gaffer.
No. When she said the Harris-Biden administration, that's what she meant.
She meant that.
Exactly.
And she was selling that. But on that note, if you think about it, the great stand-up comedians of this time, in the last 30, 40, 50 years, almost all of them that you think of, they're great stand-up comedians, they're almost all black men. Mm-hmm. How many really great, impactful stand-up comedians can you think of that are white guys?
And you're talking about current, last few years.
Well, I'm
because you can go back and Rodney Dangerfield, George Carlin.
Okay, yeah. Okay, say like last 10, 20 years. Because, Carlin was great. Carlin was not politically correct.
No.
Robin Williams was actually a great stand-up. He just went into movies. He was great. Was not politically correct,
Yeah.
But there's a certain point where it was not okay for anyone to be not politically correct. It's just part of, in our country, there's a lot of black guys who just still don't care.
Right.
And that's really what's going on. It's not that they're being told it's okay. It's just that it's part of, and I can say this as a black man, there's a part of that experience growing up where you're not, a lot of black men just are a lot more politically, socially agnostic than people would have you believe. Mm-hmm. When you put in perspective, I would gander maybe 10% of black men are actual liberals. It's not something that
when you say liberal, you mean leftist progressive.
I mean leftist progressive. I would even go farther than that. I would even say mainstream liberal. I would say, this is a ballpark figure, but not anywhere close to a quarter. Most black men, in my just looking up and down different age groups, I think as you get older, black men tend to become more traditionally Democrat, but more centrist Democrat. But the younger folks, I don't know where I'd place them, but they're certainly not lovers of Joe Biden, and they certainly don't love this cancel culture, political correct stuff, because that's not the language they're speaking.
Well, you talk about the comedians, and the one that comes to mind, the first one that comes to mind, is Richard Pryor.
Absolutely.
Because I think he was to the point where if he had come along 20 years earlier, mm-hmm. he couldn't have said what he said because he was black.
Legally.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They wouldn't have he'd have been tarred and feathered.
Right.
But he came around at the right time, said the right thing, and absolutely everybody thought he was hilarious. Even those that said, no, that's disgusting, that's horrible, that's sexist, that's racist, and that's hilarious.
And I'm going to say something straight up, that Richard Pryor has done more for black folks than any politician. There's certain examples, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan. There's a few people who are outstanding, but by and large, people like James Brown, the people in the arts, Aretha Franklin, did more to fix our country's problems with race and violence and those things than politicians playing the Democrat-Republican game.
I think you're right. And I think that's because they led by example, first of all.
Absolutely.
And they said, look, and they would make a statement and say, you mentioned Aretha Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loved her. Beautiful voice. Everybody loves her voice, okay? And then she would, just by the way she acted, they said, well, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Aretha Franklin, she's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I love her music. I love this. And if Aretha Franklin's like this, and if so-and-so's like this, you know what? Maybe I had a bad idea, wrong idea
yes.
of what black people were all about.
Absolutely.
So they changed the minds
Absolutely.
of people. And that's been my opinion all along with, and when I say things, no one has any fun anymore, mm-hmm. I even go to sports. To me, the NFL and the NBA have been ruined by all the they turned into social justice warriors.
It's fake.
Now, I think it is fake.
Utterly disingenuous.
They're trying to make a statement. Now, if you've got $100 million contract, friend, you've got the money to really make a change in doing something. And I would think if you want to make a change, the number one thing you would want to do is to get more people thinking the way you think instead of alienating people.
And there are players that do that.
Oh, there are.
But this thing where you have Black Lives Matter on the back of everyone's jersey instead of their names, that is so stupid. Because I'm looking at the basketball game, I'm just like, who's that guy? And it says something like, I don't know, it says Black Lives Matter. It says one of the slogans. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but that's not his name. And they're I really, I don't like to try and conjecture what's going on, and I'm definitely not an anti-masker. I've worn masks before, but the way the mask up crowd is cheering women being arrested for being at a football game without a mask, while the cop who's arresting her doesn't have a mask.
Yeah,
there's something going on. And I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but somebody made a decision to promote something because they want to get people to do something. Mm-hmm. It's not about like my book is about an actual conspiracy,
right,
of the vampires and otherworldly people who are in league with the the power brokers of the world to control us. Quote,
sure.
I don't believe that's necessarily the case. Okay, which is kind of protest of the book, because my book kind of makes fun of that too. But I do believe it's reasonable to assume, because I am in media communications, you've worked in media communications, advertising isn't based off of communicating with people with their individual thoughts. It's based off of programming you to think what we've told you to think is your own thought.
If you buy this car or drink this beer, you will get the hottest girl known to man on your arm.
Yes.
And it's baloney, but if you see it enough, maybe you halfway believe it.
It's just because it saturates your unconscious, it saturates your subconscious, just like what we were talking about before, where you and I found ourselves in different ways actually incorporating this crazy political correct consciousness in our own lives and in our own work.
Yeah.
I found myself, I thought I was almost done with my book, and I started looking at it, and that crap crept into my work. And I had to go back for 2 months and get this googly gobbly, super politically correct, super neo-feminist, neo-black, intellectual, orthodox, liberal, socialist crap. And it was in there, and I didn't even realize it.
You came close to canceling yourself.
Damn straight. I almost had to cancel myself. But it's because even if you know it's BS, if the people around you and your friends are adopting it, it becomes a reflexive operation. If you're speaking a language, there are certain words in your language you'll just naturally use because that's how you communicate. And it's the same thing with this politically correct stuff. You start learning to speak that language and you start thinking that way. and you find